Perfect. So, hey everyone, welcome back to Scoreleap's MS Abroad series. If you've ever wondered what it actually takes to go from an undergrad degree to studying policy and governance at one of the world's top schools for international affairs, we are very excited for this one because it unpacks a lot throughout the course of the Scoreleap team. For those who don't know us, Scoreleap is an edtech platform helping students prepare for standardized tests like the GMAT, GRE, and the SAT, and supporting them through admissions and scholarships. So, this is a part of our MS Abroad series where we bring on people who have actually lived the journey we talk about so much. And today, please join me in welcoming our guest, Simran, who did her BA in Psychology, Sociology, and Economics from Christ University, Bangalore, before going on to pursue a Master's of Public Administration in Development and Governance at Columbia University's School of International and Public Affairs, SIPA. So today, she'll walk us through what that decision actually looked like in practice, settling into a new city, navigating a completely different academic and policy focused environment, and building a network from scratch. And especially what she's planning to do next, right after her degree as well. So if you're someone who's weighing a master's abroad and figuring out if it's worth your time, which school to pick, or which life, or what kind of life it kind of looks like when you actually go there, this is the right session for you. And you would want to kind of hear what Simran has to say today. With that being said, welcome Simran. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for taking out time today.
Thank you so much, Shams, for having me here. I'm so glad that I hope that my conversation is helpful. I hope that I'm able to share my experience as honestly as possible so that it assists anyone in their journey because I know this journey in itself is very overwhelming and a huge step in life. So I guess thank you for giving me the platform to like share my thoughts.
Perfect, and that's amazing. And Simran, how has life been for you lately? How have things been for you?
It's great to be in New York City for sure. It's a fast city. It has
Mm.
everything for everyone, I would say. It gets overwhelming at times because you are always behind. You feel like you're behind something
Yeah,
because there is so much happening at the same time, but then also you are growing at that enormous rate as well because you
correct.
are actively involved in so many things. So I guess, yeah.
Amazing. So I think, Simran, I think let's start ahead and go ahead with the session. And before we kind of go ahead with the session, Simran, I think a lot of us would really love to understand who you are and beyond Columbia and beyond the academics part as well. So Simran, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and who was Simran before you joined Columbia?
So I'm from Lucknow originally, and that's where I was born and brought up. I studied there in Ramatnia. I think I had very supportive parents who were way beyond like thinking in like very forward in their thinking and supporting. And that's what enabled me to come out from my undergrad as well, out of my city to Bangalore. That change shifted a lot of things for me. It helped me grow in various ways. It was that time itself was a completely new city too at the age of 18. So and that gave me to be in a city like Bangalore gave me another chance to explore what I want in terms of my career, my passions, my habits. And in my undergrad, I was very actively involved in theater. That in itself was a very beyond academic thing because as much as I got a really fascinating combination of subjects in my college, I think like a very enriching thing for me was my theater experience that I did.
Amazing.
Being a
Yeah.
part of such a big team, I found very like a lot of belonging in them from the beginning, an opportunity to be a leader as well by the third year, explore art forms, and then beyond that, I was also involved with ISEC in Bangalore, which was another great chance for me to explore skills, skill up actually, and talk to so many people, meet so many people. So I guess all of these experience helped like combine like and shape who I am beyond my Columbia or like my other things. Yeah.
Amazing. And thank you so much for that. So I'll just pick up a point because you said you're from Lucknow, you've come to Bangalore, and then you went to Columbia. So again, obviously it takes a lot to kind of move cities, and there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things that are involved with the parent side as well.
Yes.
So when you first told your family and friends that you wanted to study public policy at Columbia University, what was the reaction? Because you were also constantly moving cities and then a
Mm-hmm.
different degree to a different place. So what
I
worked out?
think I think it changed over the years slowly as I like for example I started with thinking okay I wanted to
Hmm.
do social work. I was not specific oh I want to go towards public policy. In class
Hmm.
11th and 12th you don't really know that much about the development sector,
Yeah.
so it was like oh I want to work in the development sector and that's it. And then
Hmm.
at that time my parents were extremely supportive about that. My dad was like as long as you're able to build your career this is your choice, we support
Yeah.
you. But at the same time it's not all rainbows and sunshine. Of course that if you
Correct.
tell it to your
Yeah.
long distance relatives that you want to do social work, it does come with its own inhibitions that and like skeptical that if you want to do charity you can just do something as a profession and like do social work as a side passion or a hobby, but taking it as an entire career is a different thing altogether. Your video is paused, Shreyansh. I'm not sure if there's a lag in my system or yours. Are you able to hear me right now?
Yes. Yes, Simran. Perfect. Yes. You're audible.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
Perfect.
And then I did the Teach for India fellowship, and that's what changed my goal towards public policy. And then
Hmm.
again, going abroad, like for this specific subject, again, very thankfully so, my parents were supportive. And especially because I got into Columbia, they were like, what a great school to go to.
Yeah.
But again, it does take some convincing to tell your relatives or people that you're going for a public policy degree, and which is not that common. I think it is a little beyond the convention, but like I guess if it makes sense for you, it does.
Yeah, because I can't imagine the kind of the pressure that goes around telling people,
It
right? Because
does.
obviously there's
Yes,
a lot of
yes.
skepticism that is involved in
Mhm.
it, right? And
Uh-huh.
people will have opinions. So that's amazing. I think
Yeah.
what you said is amazing, and that kind of shows that if you want to do something, you can figure it out, and you can
Yeah.
obviously let the relatives know as well.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, Simran, if someone had to look at your LinkedIn profile today, what part of your journey do you think they would completely miss out on?
Uh, I would say two things. As I mentioned, I was in theater team, and that
Hmm.
really did shape so much for me. The way I speak to people, the kind of people I met there, the confidence I gained through 3 years of, doing a lot of creative stuff and putting it out on a platform for people to observe and also critique. I think that it in itself is, of course, missing from my LinkedIn, and it shaped a big part of me, and people wouldn't get to know that. Another thing would be my Teach for India journey. Um, Everyone gets to see it, but a very broad, view of it. What I learned, what I did on a broader role, but every day in the ground, like on the ground in the classroom, looks very different with 42 kids, with
Correct. Yeah.
with the school administration who you have to, be negotiate with, and even develop relations with parents as well. So I think all of the bits and pieces of it that actually make the journey of the Teach for India is might be something that people won't be able to see through the LinkedIn first.
Correct. No, that makes sense. And I think thank you for sharing those two things. And now coming back to why you wanted to kind of figure out your way ahead in public administration. So Simran, what inspired you to kind of take forward and go ahead with public administration as something that you want to do for the rest of your life?
I think for me, it would come directly from my Teach for India journey, because when you spend like 2 years in a classroom in a low income community, you start to very clearly see that the problems that your students are facing are not just, classroom problems. They are policy problems, they are systemic problems. For example, why does the school not have enough teachers? Why are these children coming to school hungry? Why are
Right.
girls dropping out at a very certain age? These are not questions a teacher can always answer, and especially from inside the classroom, they are questions that require someone to be in a room where decisions are about funding, curriculum, infrastructure, even social protection, and how they are being made.
Hmm.
So, public administration felt like the right bridge between ground level reality and I think the systemic changes that I want to contribute towards.
Perfect. Amazing. So I think you've also covered about why you want to kind of also take on social impact and governance ahead as
Mm-hmm.
well. So thank you for
Uh-huh.
covering that. So why specifically Columbia and why specifically like SIPA? Did you kind of have a particular opinion about it?
I guess in the beginning, no. Even when I started my journey, it was
Mm,
confusing. But I think in that regard, Scoreleap itself was very helpful in terms of the
mm, yeah,
counseling that I had with them, and like the sorting out colleges on what basis, doing a thorough research with them was
yeah,
super duper helpful for me. And that's what made me figure out why Columbia SIPA. And there were like few reasons. First, the development and governance concentration was exactly that I was looking for. It sits
mm,
right at the intersection of policy analysis and also practical development work rather than being just theoretical. Then SIPA, of course, has this incredible culture of bringing in practitioners alongside academics. So, professors who have worked at the UN, World Bank,
mm,
government ministries, civil society organizations. So, that's, of course, a big, big plus. And then,
correct,
honestly, New York, of course, is a great city, like in
correct.
terms of the opportunities that you can find there, in terms of the networking platforms that you can find there, I think. And it has a lot of chance in terms of civil
Mm,
society organizations also. So I guess that was one of the things.
correct. So I think, yeah, so now you've figured out that, yeah, hey, I want to go to SIPA. But were there
Uh-huh.
other universities that you were also considering at the same time? Did you have any other options
I
in your head?
did, I did. I think one of the other universities that I was considering and I luckily got into was also University of Southern California. And
Amazing.
that was another brilliant university. It has a great curriculum as well.
Mm,
It was a tough choice. It wasn't an easy choice for sure.
perfect. So, okay, now you've said you know why you have to go to Columbia. You've
Uh-huh.
figured out this is the best university for you. So, obviously, once you get that admit to kind of going to the university and starting your life there, it's a long journey, right? It's a
It
good
is
6 to 7 months in between that kind of also kind of happens in between.
for
So,
sure.
as someone who is also going through the process at the same time, the admissions process, how challenging was the entire application process for you? What were certain hurdles or problems that you kind of faced in between?
I think the whole application process is challenging for several reasons. It is overwhelming. It is a lot of processes that you need to figure out by yourself. Every college has its own type of essay, has its own type of
Mm,
requirements. The deadlines look different, especially if you're going on to apply for scholarships as well. Everything looks different. And I think the challenge that more than logistics, it's also about the self reflection that is required while writing essays.
yeah,
The essays push you to be very specific, not just about, I had the rough idea, oh, I want to be in public policy, but like why
yeah,
specifically, what in public policy. And I think coming from a background like mine, where I had not worked I had worked with Teach for India, but I had not gotten a chance to work with something at a policy level or a scalable level. So,
correct.
of course, I had to articulate very clearly what the 2 years of teaching in a low income school had given
Yeah,
me, and shape the narrative in a way, of course, like be honest and also shape it in a way that it leads to some place that you want to.
correct.
So, and again, Scully was very helpful with that. I think that's where I
Yeah,
got most of my help from. And so I guess, yeah.
perfect, perfect. But apart from the essay, what do you think actually made your application stand out? Did you feel that was it also a bit of your experience? Was it also a bit of your passion? But anything else that you feel that made your application stand out from the rest of the students?
I think what helped me, my application stand out was writing very honestly about my experience. And I did like, for example, I brought out the example of one of the girls that I was teaching in my school who
Mm,
started missing schools because of domestic responsibilities and violence at her house. So, just telling the story that I had witnessed, but and that is the story that
yeah,
inspired me, and putting it down on paper, that is what I think helped my application stand out. It was not a generic thing, it was
mm,
something very
correct,
specific from the experience, lived ground level experience. I think that helped.
correct. Correct. I think you're correct because I think a lot of universities focus on how specific you are. I think how clear are
Mm-hmm.
you with what you want to go ahead, and
Mm-hmm.
that sounds amazing as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Simran, looking back, is there something that you wished you did differently, or something that maybe you would want to figure out earlier if you were in the same process again?
In the application process,
Yeah.
I think, although a lot of people recommended that to me, but I did procrastinate on that part, and I was also overwhelmed to be doing that. But
Mm.
I think connecting with a lot more seniors. I did talk to a
Correct.
couple of them from
Correct.
Columbia, from USC, from people who are in New York.
Mm.
But I think I could have started that from like day zero and done it as a lot more, like with many people, talking to people on LinkedIn, making connection with them, understanding their experiences, their process, how did they do
Yeah.
it. I think that helps a lot, talking with a lot of people.
Perfect. And Simran, any advice that you might have for people who might not have a perfect profile or the best profile to kind of get into Columbia or any other university abroad?
I don't think there exists a perfect profile as such. Honestly,
Mm.
I lacked the confidence while I was applying to Columbia as well, because my academics were good, but they
Mm.
weren't an excellent position. But
Correct.
I think my profile in itself was holistically quite evolved. My work experience spoke for it. My 2 years, not just at Teach for India, but after that also I joined another NGO, and that
Mm.
helped. What I did in my college beyond my academics, theater, ISEC, all of that helped shape a narrative and a personality.
Correct.
So just apply genuinely. You might think that there's a huge gap between you and getting to SIPA, but everything that you have done till that point shapes the narrative and shapes what you have done. So that's what gets
Correct.
you through it. I
Correct.
don't think there's a perfect profile. Apply, apply, apply. And yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, amazing, amazing advice, Simran, because I think that's what a lot of people miss out on, right? They want to
Mhm.
build that perfect profile and then they
Uh-huh.
take up a lot of time. So thank you for that
Yes.
advice, Simran. Perfect. So now from your admissions process to now actually being there at Columbia in New York. So what was your very first week like in another city, in another university?
Completely overwhelming, but in the most wonderful way,
Yeah,
because there was orientation week, but then you're also figuring out housing. Uh, you are always looking for housing in New York, and like it's so
correct. Yeah.
difficult to land the perfect thing. And
Mhm.
I think, honestly, for anyone who's moving to another city, especially New York, my biggest advice is get onto housing as well from before, because it was a really overwhelming experience. So yeah, the orientation is going on the first week. There's math camp going on for me specifically,
Mhm.
like our degree, which was a requirement.
Mhm.
And then suddenly you're in a room full of 100 people from every part of the world, which is
Correct.
great because there is so much perspective and learning and experience in the
Correct.
room. You are with former diplomats, you're with NGO workers, you're with military officers. It's
Mhm.
amazing, but
Correct.
also it's also very nervous to be a
Yeah.
young person in the room,
Yeah.
and like who comes from a lesser experience than others, of course.
Yeah.
And then everyone is trying to but what helps again is being honest.
Yeah.
And everyone is nervous about the same things at the same time. It's just not you. Even someone who's had 10 years of work experience, when they're
Yeah.
standing in a new room full of people, it's the same anxiety for
Correct.
everyone, I would say.
Correct.
So I remember thinking I've never been in a room like this. I had
Mhm.
never thought I
Yeah.
would come so far. So that in itself was a very wonderful
Yeah.
feeling to have. But yeah, it all goes side by side. The overwhelm and the
Correct.
amazement of it. Yeah.
Correct. Now I can understand how intimidating and how nervously excited you might have been on that first day or
Yeah.
the first week. I think
Yeah.
that's a great experience to share as well. And from that, I think obviously New York is a city that a lot of people want to go to. It's like also considered a city of uh, a lot of people have dreams of going to New York at the end of the day, right? Because it has so
Mhm.
much to offer. There's so much diversity.
It is. Yeah.
So, when you were there in New York, was there anything that caught you off guard or that surprised you about New York or the campus when you had that first week there?
I don't think anything that like particularly surprised me, but of course things were so different that like I
Correct.
was prepared for the different, but the scale of the city, the noise,
Yeah.
the pace, the fact that you can walk out, like there are people running at 9 a.m. or 11 p.m. or
Yeah.
3 p.m. in the afternoon. The streets are full of people. It's a lot. It's also very
Correct.
electric. Then the coming from Bangalore, which is big and busy, but the rhythm is very different.
Correct.
So, and New York feels very like persistent, relentless. So
Mm.
nothing slows down, nobody waits, and everything is happening simultaneously. So the pace of things is what I think scared me, excited me, was
Mm.
different for me. But yeah, and also I think the most interesting part about a culture shock, I wouldn't be, it would be from the city itself, but even the way the academics are done there, like the
Correct.
whole education, the college, I think all of that
Correct.
was the way classrooms are being conducted,
Mm.
everything looked very different, I think.
Perfect. So yes, obviously we'll come back to the academics part because
I know,
that's
I
that's pretty
yeah.
interesting, right? I think that's a
Uh,
great conversation to have as well. But
mm,
any cultural shock, because I think US as a country is very different to India, right? A lot of different
it is.
ideologies, practices.
Mm,
But any culture
mm.
shock that you faced initially there?
I think a lot of people have asked me this question, and I find it difficult to answer. I think culture
Mm.
shock would be, it depends on the city that you go to in the US.
Correct.
Population is a big culture shock usually,
Correct.
the amount of people present there. But then again, New York is such a busy city, and thankfully,
Yeah.
I was in a neighborhood which is a very busy neighborhood that I didn't
Mm.
really feel the lack of people and the population that
Mm.
much. And then I think another culture shock, I mean, in a positive way, I think I don't know about it being a culture shock, but very different was the fashion and the BP. I am a
Correct. Yeah.
very someone
Yeah.
who loves fashion, who loves
Yeah.
getting ready and outfits, and that was another game altogether over
Yeah.
there, which was very good to like be a part of. Another very exciting thing. So I would say it was a
Correct.
positive thing for me,
Correct.
but it depends from people to people for sure.
Mm.
And I think for me, very honestly, uh, not being a culture shock, but the accent also takes a while to be like, picked
Yeah.
up, to be understood.
Correct.
It's a very genuine thing, like, because yeah, the kind of way I speak would be very different from the way they speak there.
Correct.
It takes a while. All the people themselves over there are very welcoming, very warm. It's
Mm.
never a rude, like, you don't feel unwelcome, but you do feel like, oh, sometimes
Yeah.
if I could, like, the accent is dull.
Correct. Correct.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think that makes sense. Whatever you said makes perfect sense for someone who's also planning to go to the US, especially as well.
Mhm,
But
mhm, mhm.
personally, was there any adjustment that you made? Because obviously, there's a different lifestyle as well that you have to kind of take up, right? From Bangalore is again from Lucknow, as you said, Lucknow to Bangalore would be
Mhm,
different for you. Now, Bangalore
mhm.
to the US would be very different for you. So, any major adjustment that you made personally while you were moving to New York City?
Very healthily so, doing everything by myself. Like,
Correct.
we are
Yeah.
very used to the help, the easy help that we can get in
Correct.
India in terms
Correct.
of just your house, anyway, going outside, your luggage, everything. And there,
Correct. Yeah.
you got to do from day zero everything by yourself. I remember being on the airport
Mm.
with four large suitcases and genuinely
Mm.
struggling because you
Yeah.
can't really hold
Yeah.
four suitcases at
Correct.
the same time, and there's no help.
Correct.
Now, the people there were a huge help. I found really nice people who
Mm.
were like, oh, we can help you drag them along. But then that is a big shock because
Yeah.
you are used to people being around you, doing everything for you, like, and you got to figure out all of it at the same time as your academics, at the same time as your college, whether it's,
Correct.
planning your groceries, cooking for yourself,
Mm.
cleaning the house, everything goes side by side. Nothing can be just left behind. And
Correct.
then
Correct.
also big adjusting was the networking, the talking to a lot of people, which again, all of these are good shifts, but it
Mm.
does take a while to adjust for sure. That you
Yeah.
have to constantly network your way around, keep talking to people, build genuine connections, and not just networking. So I think that is a big adjustment as well.
Correct. Amazing. And I can understand because obviously it's in a way it's very self-empowering as well, right? Doing all of these things on
It
your own
does.
that you're not used to
Yeah,
doing. So it kind of trains
exactly.
you for the long run. And that
Mhm.
sounds amazing, Simran. Perfect. So from that, I think you settling into New York to now about your academics at SIPA. So that's pretty interesting. And I personally also know I want to know more about what you had,
Mhm.
what the kind of experience you had at SIPA as well. So I think coming back to what you also said, the kind of education, the difference, how it's taught, how it's conducted in the US, right? So what do you feel when it comes to Columbia? How different was it when it comes to studying at Columbia to the kind of education you've had before? in India? So any differences that you were able to point out?
I think the first difference being being very application based, very
Correct.
like you would get your readings, and that's something that you do from before. That you're very rigorous and stringent about it because the class doesn't really focus on the reading; it focuses on the
Correct.
application from what you have read already. So you
Correct.
gotta be prepped for each class,
Mm,
and it's it's like the readings are great, but they are
mm,
also huge, like a lot of pages.
mm,
So to keep up with it in multiple subjects, that is a big thing to adjust to, and different and challenging. I think another thing is the kind of conversations that you can hold in your classroom with your professors specifically. The
mm,
professors are very approachable, very friendly. They are really interested in building a meaningful connection with you.
mm.
So it's not just, I am sometimes whenever I have a doubt, I'm not just approaching them with the doubt, but they also
Mm.
like, oh, how did you spend your weekend? Or like,
Correct.
what are your plans?
Correct.
So it's like a connection made beyond the classroom, and that helps
Correct.
in the classroom as well. That
Mm,
gets you comfortable and interested in the subject as well.
mm.
I think that third thing would be that it's of course very rigorous,
Correct. Yeah.
and in a good way also. It is a lot of group projects. Like you wouldn't expect that at grad school, but it does
Mm,
happen that most of your projects and submissions are group submissions. So that way you get to work with a lot of people, and like again, as I said, everyone is from a very diverse background. So
correct.
all of those perspectives and learnings combined together makes it a very great experience.
Amazing. Amazing. Perfect. And obviously, when you're talking about academics, it's also very important to know that how does a typical week look like in a university, right? Because you said it's rigorous, you have so many projects. So what does a typical week for a Columbia student at SIPA looks like?
A typical week would be going to classes, going to professors for their office hours,
Hmm.
because that is again very important in terms of building, as I said, connection with
Correct.
them. But also in terms, they are very helpful in telling you about the kind of opportunities that lie in terms of internships, jobs
Hmm.
beyond Columbia. So that in itself. So I think going for office hours, um, what other a typical week looks like: cooking, cleaning,
Hmm.
going to college, going for
Hmm.
your classes, meeting so many
Correct.
people, trying to meet those people that because you're making a lot of friends, but it's
Yeah.
difficult to keep in touch with them because they are from different
Yeah.
classrooms, they are in different courses. So making sure you have maybe trying to make time for them as well, like getting a coffee with them, or
Hmm.
grabbing a lunch with them, or a dinner with them. So it's like a lot of planning, and that goes on to
Hmm.
the calendar. And a
Correct.
typical week is always it takes time to get to that stage, but it shows on your calendar, like everything.
Correct.
You're having class at this time and office hour at this
Hmm.
time, and maybe you're part of an association or a
Hmm.
club. So going for that meeting at this time, and then a lunch with a friend at this, everything is on your
Hmm.
calendar, and
Yeah.
it's very intense, I would say. And yeah, that's
Hmm.
it.
I think that's intense in a good way. I think
In
that's
a
what
good way.
it should be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that sounds amazing. The
yeah.
kind of schedule you've had, and I can
Yeah.
only imagine how different it would have been for you.
Yeah.
Perfect. So now coming on to the courses that you had to study and the modules that you had to study at Columbia. So was there any particular course that you felt challenged your thinking the most, especially in how you understood the subject to be and how it actually turned out?
I think, yeah, I have had honestly a lot of courses, especially in the concentration that I chose, development and governance. It had a diversity of courses that I had never
Mm,
imagined could even exist. And one of them being global politics and
mm,
international organizations, which was with Professor Nuhawks. I
mm,
think I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but yeah, it
mm,
fundamentally changed how I think about power, influence, and like institutions such as the UN, and how they impact each meeting, each thing, how they are talked about, each country when it votes, when it
mm,
doesn't vote for things at a UN level, what shapes it, and
mm,
we also had a lot of people there, like guest speakers in that course in itself, from the UN system, talking
mm,
about how decisions are made at in the UNSC. how it's the power of nine,
Mm.
and like everything. So I came with a certain assumption about how the UN or other international organizations work and what multilateralism means. But the course systematically like interrogated all of these notions that I had. So,
Correct.
and that's a particular class we read about how states behave in international
Mm.
institutions. So, again, I think that helped. Was a very challenging but a good course. Yeah.
Correct. I think what you covered in itself, right, about the different aspects of UN and how
Mm-hmm.
different the voting part for the country's part, and it
Mm-hmm.
sounds very unique, sounds very
Mm-hmm.
different to what we also study and what we
Yeah,
assume to study. So that's
exactly.
very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And now coming back to the diversity part, because I think you've said so passionately about the kind of diversity that is there at Columbia. So again, if you can maybe just highlight the diversity that you felt was there in your classroom, about like people from different nationalities or the background that they were coming from.
I think extraordinary, like it's not just geographically, though that is remarkable too, but people and like people from literally every continent. But the more meaningful diversity is in the backgrounds and their
Correct.
experience. In a single seminar, you might have someone who has been negotiating peace agreements, someone who has
Mm,
run a government health program, someone
mm,
who's been a journalist covering conflict, and someone
mm,
like me who's been teaching children. So, and those different lenses make every discussion richer and like a
mm.
more complex understanding of it. And I've also learned as much from my classmates, I will say, as much as from my professors, for sure.
Amazing, amazing. Perfect. So again, moving on from the diversity part now, again, because your course also has a lot of kind of influence from the kind of institutions that are also connected with the course,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because obviously you'll be meeting people, as you said, you have guest speakers, you'll have a lot of experience when it comes to the government, NGOs, or firms
Mm-hmm.
all across, right? Even the military to an extent as well. So obviously the kind of experience you've said is very meaningful and kind of it builds, in my opinion, a very strong understanding of how to kind of go ahead and kind of get things done
Mm-hmm.
with that kind of perspective as well. So I think you've covered that as well going forward. Perfect. So we've talked about what you did within the classroom. Now I'm also excited to know what was happening after beyond the classroom as well, right? Because again, we will come jump back to New York City and what it has to
Mm-hmm.
offer again. So can you tell Simran one thing that makes Columbia unique, right? One thing that makes Columbia unique is New York City. So how different was the temperament of the city to what you had expected?
In terms of the like, okay, the city culture and
Correct.
everything, and like, I think I expected the pace, but not
Mm,
as much. What is different is that we all have this notion that, for example, when you're studying for exams, you just tend to like focus on your exams. You wouldn't go out and about. But that is what New York and Columbia, I think, in itself taught
correct.
me that it's not one thing at one time. When you're giving your exams simultaneously, you have to be attending if there's a social or a networking event, that too. Have
Mm,
energy for that as well. Your focus, you have to prepare before a networking event. So you should be able to do that as well. Meanwhile,
mm,
also, if there are applications open for your internships, apply
mm.
for that as well. So it all goes side
Correct.
by side, which is amazing to grow into, but also
Correct.
very challenging and not what I expected and not what we're used to. Like, for example,
Correct.
here, if we have exams in college, everything else stops, right? You are
Correct.
not
Yeah.
going out and you're not doing a club activity, but over there, it all goes together,
Mm,
which does get challenging for sure to keep up with
correct.
everything. Yeah,
Correct. So again, as you said, I think it's a natural. New York was also AB also is also a natural extension of what you had studied and what you were
exactly,
trying to
exactly.
study at Columbia
Yes,
as well.
yes,
So
yes,
that's
yes.
a perfect, I think, sync there. But did you get
Mm.
an opportunity, because I think you've spoken about networking events and how that impacted you? Any opportunity that you had to kind of attend any events at the UN or the World Bank or any think tanks settled or based out of based out of the city?
I did get a chance in my college in itself. There was an event which had people from all civil society organizations, UN, and everywhere.
Mm,
But also in New York, I was able to attend the EcoSoc Youth Forum at the United Nations headquarters,
Amazing. Yeah.
and that was another experience which you simply cannot have anywhere else other than New York.
Correct.
I was able to talk with people who are a part of UNFPA, UNDP. They have lived and like curated programs specifically in East Africa or the Latin America. So I think that in itself was a huge opportunity to be able to be in the same room with them, to speak with them, to learn from their experience, to have a dialogue with them. I think
Amazing. And I
that is
think,
what helped me. Yeah.
no, I mean, because I think that's the kind of experience you would want when you're going there, right?
Exactly.
It sounds so unique because being in a EcoSoc forum is an amazing
Mhm.
experience to have. Perfect. So Simran, again, beyond the classroom, any particular experience that you had that stuck along with you for a very long time? Any memorable experience that you had?
I think it would be my capstone experience. So we are supposed to
Mm.
do a capstone project in our 2 years. I chose to do it in my first year, and
Okay.
it a part of it was doing field research in Kenya. So I got to travel to
Okay.
Kenya, and I was a
Amazing.
part of consulting team working with a Swiss impact investment firm,
Mm.
and we were doing a gender lens and like a sustainable
Mm.
comparison for them. And we
Correct.
went to Nairobi to conduct the field research. We were interviewing women entrepreneurs in a slum. We were interviewing bank officials,
Mm.
from the HR team to the head of that bank division of that microfinance
Correct.
lender. So I think that was a huge experience for me, because not only did I get to travel to Kenya and like enjoy a new city, like a new country altogether, but then also um, talking with them and understanding how money lending works and like in a sustainable in a way, or in a development sector, how it shapes their lives, what are the small things that a bank can do, but yet they are also overly stretched out and pressured into like the system. So it's a very difficult
Correct.
conversation to have at the ground level, and to see that and like to be able to talk and hear about it was a very memorable
Correct.
experience for me. Yeah.
Correct. And that's impact, I believe, in the truest sense, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
again, you're going to another country, figuring things out. So
Exactly.
that's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. Perfect. So now moving from again campus and New York City, what were the kind of experiences that you had? Because obviously you would also have a life beyond academics as well, right? So how was that for you? Anything that you did that kind of helped you feel more settled, or any places that you visited in the New York City that made you in awe, like that you felt were amazing.
I think there are a lot of places like that.
Hmm.
You get, I'm a big time foodie, so that
Hmm.
helps being there because you can get
Correct.
food from all over the world.
Correct.
There is K Town, so you get like good barbecues there,
Hmm.
Korean barbecues. There is Chinatown, which has very authentic noodles.
Hmm.
Then there is like every kind of food you can find there. I think that was one of the best parts for me, to be able to explore a new food every week, and also then slowly after exploring, you build down like a comfort food, like the I
Hmm.
love pizzas over there now. So on a
Correct.
weekend, it's definitely ending with like a New York slice. That
Hmm.
that is comfort food at by now. And
Hmm.
then another thing that I really loved there was going for a Broadway show. I had watched Stranger Things as a show, but like to be able to watch the Broadway
Yeah.
show for it
Yeah.
was a very cool experience for me.
Yeah.
Then I know there is Central Park, which I really love, but there is also Riverside Park, which has amazing sunsets. Which is like Central Park is the, I know everyone knows it as even from outside New York, but I think my preference is for the Riverside Park because it's really like right next to my house, and then
Mhm.
it has amazing sunsets, good view just to go there, read a book, lie down,
Mhm.
play games with your friends. I think all of these things. Yeah,
Amazing. I think that's like the proper holistic experience that you've had
it
beyond the classroom as well. So
is.
that's good to hear. That's amazing to hear. Perfect. Now coming back to how students usually balance life at Columbia in New York City. So because you also mentioned internships, there would be, I believe, a lot of clubs and societies that students
Mm-hmm,
can be
mm-hmm.
a part of. So how do students on a typical basis are able to kind of figure out all of these things together, right? Be it academics, internships, clubs.
I think honestly with great difficulty, and
Hmm.
it requires a lot of prioritization as well.
Correct.
SIPA is genuinely demanding academically, and if you add the load of internships, applications, networking, club commitments, and a social life on top of that,
Hmm.
something always has to be like gets left
Correct.
out. And you do feel it's something that I've talked to so many of my friends with, that you feel like you're lagging behind in something or the other, as
Correct.
even though you have done so much in a day, you just still feel like, oh, something got left out. So what I've learned is that you cannot do everything and you have
Hmm.
to make, and that's a difficult part to make peace with.
Correct.
But and you have to be more intentional about where
Hmm.
you spend your time and energy, and that's where I said the calendar comes in. Like, it takes a lot of planning, and like people literally, if you want to catch up with a friend, you have to text them like 3 weeks in it. Oh, are you
Okay.
available on this date for a cup of coffee? Because
Oh
you
my
are
God.
also available only that day. So it's
Correct.
tough, and and as soon as someone confirms, it goes on a calendar. So I think
Okay.
having an app or something that helps you organize all of it.
Okay.
I know people who use Notion
Hmm.
every day, putting down every task on that to be
Oh
able
my.
to. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think whatever
Correct.
suits you, but having an app or something helps a lot. Then having a good support system
Hmm.
is what helps you balance everything. Sometimes when you feel you're missing out on stuff, for example, if you are not able to figure out where to apply for your internships,
Hmm.
having good friends and a good support system helps with that, because your friends are applying for similar internships too. They are
Correct.
you if you come across internship application like opportunities, share with them, they will share with you. Having a support system and a good, like maybe an accountable buddy, if you want to go work
Hmm.
out, have a friend that you work out with over there. If you want to go
Hmm.
out for food, like exploring food, have friends who you just go out to explore food with. I think that
Correct.
helps a lot. Yeah.
Correct. I think my biggest takeaway was the Notion part where you have to also schedule meetings to meet your friends with us. Okay, I think
It
that's
is, it
very
is.
unique. Perfect.
That's a very new
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Cool. Perfect. And I think moving on to the last section for this, my last question for the section, Simran, can you tell, because I think New York has a lot of places to visit. So any hidden gem that you came across in New York that, any student should visit there?
I don't know about hidden gems,
Anything that,
but yeah, they should. I think if you want to have fun,
mm,
eat good food, I think K Town is really like that's my thing that I kept going to in my first and
mm,
second time. I think um, they should definitely try to get Broadway tickets. And
mm,
Broadway tickets are very expensive, I know, but there's
correct,
also like a lucky draw system to it. So if you apply a day earlier for lottery, you can get at a very cheaper price for Broadway tickets. That's just the tip.
okay,
They have summer has a lot of things in New York. They have free Shakespeare in Central Park, where you just gotta sign up and show up, and that's it. And people are acting out there, and they're
mm,
also moving sets and locations, so you keep moving with them in the park, which is another great experience.
correct,
um what else? There are a lot of speakeasies if you want to explore the good bars there, clubs there. I think you can try a lot of speakeasies in that way. There are a lot of clubs for everything. You can find, like, if you're into arts or crafts or like
mm,
thrifting, you can always find events for that, people for that, new people for that.
amazing. Perfect. So I think now we'll move beyond the life in New York to the
Mm-hmm,
career
mm-hmm.
opportunities that
Of course.
your course has to provide.
Mm-hmm.
So many students actually worry about careers after doing an MPA, right? So what would you maybe want to kind of talk about it? What kind of careers can students build after doing an MPA, and any advice for them, especially when they're stressed out to kind of find an opportunity post their degree?
Uh, I think I would say don't be, if like, okay, you get a lot of chance to explore in terms of what you're passionate about, and then you can find a lot of career opportunities in that way. For example, my
Mm,
friend who was a CA, in India, and she is doing her MBA now. So she is definitely very interested in the intersection of finance and development.
Correct.
So she's found her way to like the various development banks that are there and to apply. She's right now doing a World Bank internship. And I think so everyone found that take your time to explore, I would say, in terms of subjects. That in itself, Columbia is very helpful. That even if I took development and governance, I can explore subjects in business, I can explore subjects in climate and energy, I can explore subjects in finance. So that's up to me, and don't stop yourself from, because there are a lot of careers at the intersection of things. For example,
Correct.
if I take classes in peace building and negotiating, I can also be a part of IFRC or like the UN sector in which they look at security specifically. So that way, I go to a development field also, which is UN, but also like peace building and negotiating. And I think, for example, a friend of mine is really into like sustainability. She's very passionate about that. So her concentration is climate and energy, and now she has joined a startup for her internship, which is in that area.
Hmm.
So
Perfect.
it depends. The range is extraordinary,
Hmm.
and it depends on, there is World Bank, there's IMF, there are international NGOs, there are government roles. I know friends who are interning with the government of New York, and then consulting firms. There is impact investing, think tanks, journalism. There is so much that
Correct.
honestly that can also get overwhelming also at times, because there is so much to
Hmm.
go into. But in terms of, and as international students also, it does get difficult to
Correct.
find the right
Yeah.
org which will support you later on as well. I wouldn't say it's an easy path, but it's also not um, a completely non-existent one.
Correct.
Yeah.
Perfect. And in finding such opportunities, Simran, what kind of support does Columbia or the career services team have to provide?
I think the career teams have extensive resources on their website in itself.
Hmm.
There are databases of where the students and the like the alums have gone into which fields, which company, which role. So you can actually go through these resources, build a like, okay, these are the companies that or orgs that I want to go in, and reach out to those alums. And then leading on to that, that SIPA alumni network is huge and everywhere. So
Correct.
connecting with them on LinkedIn, just, and everyone's super helpful too. Like everyone is up for like if not a real time like coffee chat, maybe a 20-minute virtual call, and
Hmm.
that way you are asking them what kind of, what their role looks like, you know, in an everyday situation, understanding, oh, this is their work, do I want to do that or not, how can I get into that, asking them the questions. So I think the resources by that, we have a career advancement center, and their
Hmm.
resources are super helpful, and then the alum network is again resource.
Amazing. So, Simran, now moving towards the end and moving towards the last few questions that I have, and these questions are
Mm-hmm.
a bit reflective, right, in nature.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, how has Colombia changed you as a person, and what is something that you've learned about yourself during the entire journey that you're having right now at Columbia, right? Because you've gone to another country now, you've met so many people. So, yeah, what have you found out about yourself in the last couple of years?
Uh, I found that I do get overwhelmed, but then also when it's time to work, I'm able to do multiple things at the same time. I think I can pull that off. I learned that growth and like challenges go hand in hand. At the same time, you're crying or like frustrated or struggling or exhausted about something. But if you look back at it, or just a day after, you're able to do things so well that you thought that you would never be able to do. So I think the crying and the growth go hand by hand, like hand in hand. I think I'm more comfortable sitting with complexity and like uncertainty than I was before. I needed to be planned with everything, but now I know,
Hmm.
okay, things take a while sometimes to
Correct.
figure out. Sometimes you gotta go through the learning process of it to be able to reach the perfect execution stage. And I think in my TFI years, I've often felt frustrated, but how complicated everything was. But and why do good policies not lead to good outcomes, or why do well-designed interventions also fail? At
Hmm.
SIPA, I learned that to be curious, and that to be curious about the complexity or the failings rather than like be frustrated, because when you're curious you will think of a solution, you will think in a solution
Yeah.
oriented way, I think. So, and I've also become more confident. I feel I lacked a lot of confidence,
Mhm.
like just holding this conversation with you. I think that I might be more nervous before in my earlier years, and now
Correct.
I know that this is a conversation, so I was used to it because I
Mhm.
am used to holding those many
Correct.
conversations in my college as well. So I think that.
Correct. And you've done it perfectly well. I think the way you've answered, you've actually created an impact, and there's so much to kind of learn from you there. That's amazing to know, Simran. Perfect. And with that being said, I think we move on to the final set that we have for today's session, which is the rapid fire. So obviously, a simple. So what I'll be doing next is I'll be asking you like one-liners very quickly, and whatever comes in your head, the first thing that comes in your head, you kind of just share it with me. Right?
Okay,
Does that
I'll
work?
try to be cool. Okay.
Perfect. Perfect. Cool. So I'll start with the first question with the rapid fire. So can you describe Columbia in one word?
Relentless and persistent.
Perfect. Favorite professor?
I can't choose, but I can name some. Professor Lisa Anderson,
Hmm.
Professor Benjamin Cum, Professor Daniel Newhouse.
Perfect. Favorite module that you learned?
International innovation in driving development impact.
Perfect. Favorite place on campus?
The stairs in front of the low library where we have the alma
Hmm.
mater.
Perfect. Favorite place in New York?
I don't. There are so many.
Okay, if you have to choose
Riverside
one.
Park. Riverside Park.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Broadway or Central Park?
Depends on the weather.
Perfect. Best networking event you've ever attended?
Um, the garden party at Columbia in itself, like in my orientation week.
Hmm. Amazing. Um, Favorite Columbia tradition that you encountered?
I I think class day is super fun because everyone comes
Hmm.
together in one, like in one place where you don't get to meet these people that often, and for a photo, and everyone's just happy, and yeah. So yeah, I think
Perfect.
class day.
One New York habit that you picked up.
Walking very
Okay.
fast.
Perfect. And a dream organization that you want to work for after you graduate.
I think United Nations, UNDP, OECD, these are the few.
Perfect. And with that, I think we can close the rapid fire. So thank you so much for being so prompt, Jimran. It was amazing. Perfect. And the last closing question that I have for you is that imagine a young student in India is watching this interview, and they're wondering that could someone like me ever study at Columbia as well? So what would you like to tell them? What is that one bit of advice that you would want to give to a student in India?
Mm, I would tell them what I said before as well. The distance between where you are and Colombia feels enormous, but it is not as wide as it looks. What got me here was not a perfect profile, not a perfectly planned step by step career. It was just 2 years and like 3 years of showing up every day in the classroom in Bangalore, or caring deeply about what kind of clubs that I am in like in my undergrad. It was asking the hard questions and not being like not being satisfied, like aiming for higher. If you're already doing that, if you're already looking at that world and wondering why things are the way they are or why they should not be, then you already like you are doing the most important thing, and the rest is depends a lot on the kind of support system that you have in your life, the kind of people that you have in your life. They they can make or break it too, because they help you. The kind of support and the people that you have in life shapes everything that you do, every step that you do in this journey, whether it's choosing a college, whether it's choosing a country, whether it's the small things like going out and preparing for, oh, what should I even carry in my suitcases and like to a new country. My friends were already there. I had friends there who helped me, who give me a list of all the things that they packed, from a cooker to a clothes, or like the kind of, so the people that you have in your life I think matter a lot.
Perfect. And with that, Simran, you can officially close today's session. So thank you so much for taking out your time and for today's session overall, because I think throughout the last 1 hour, the information that you had to provide was just immense, right? And it was coming relentlessly, because, after every question, the kind of insight that you had was very unique. And I think it gave me as a third party a lot of information about what you can experience at Columbia and in New York. And thank you so much for bringing that kind of perspective, that kind of insight, because I'm pretty sure for people who would have, tuned in for this particular session, they would have learned a lot. They would have had a lot of learnings through what you had shared. So thank you so much. I think it was great to have you today, and obviously we're rooting for you for whatever you kind of go ahead and kind of achieve in life. So that's because that's what made you very different today, right? I think for me, even for me, it's so insightful because I'm still trying to take it in. So thank you so much, Simran, for that. And for anyone and everyone who's listening to this particular session, thank you so much for taking out time. And if you're remotely interested, if you're remotely interested in kind of having a master's abroad, especially in this particular field, I hope Simran was able to kind of give you a great insight today. And yeah, if you want to know more about what kind of universities, master that you want to figure out, I think do tune in to Scoreleap, and obviously you can like and subscribe to the video below. And yeah, thank you for your time. Until next time. Perfect.
Thank you, Shreyansh. Thank you, Scully, for all the guidance.